Hi guys, watch to the end of the story. If you like the story, please tap on the like button and share. Thank you. Now let's start. It all started with a fight that broke my heart. My husband Kayode had always been a good man, or so I thought. But his spending habits had started to bother me. He gave money to people who weren't family, while I and our children lacked what we needed. One evening, we quarreled again about it. His words cut deep, calling me names, saying I was ungrateful. I was angry, so angry that when he left for a trip, I felt a bitter resentment I couldn't shake. Days passed, but the anger stayed with me, a dark cloud hanging over my head. And then I did something I never thought I would do. There was a young man living just a few houses away, a university student named Jide. I had noticed the way he stared at me whenever I passed by. His eyes always followed me, his gaze lingering longer than it should. That day, when my mind was clouded with anger at Kayode, I let something foolish happen. I let Jide into my life. Jide saw me coming out of my house that morning. He smiled at me. I smiled back. He walked up to me and asked for my number. I gave him. I smiled and waved him by. That night, I waited for Jide's call, but I didn't. That night, I waited for Jide's call, but he didn't call me. I was thinking of his lips, his eyes. He was so handsome. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him. I was confused because Chide is a young guy with a promising future. But he wasn't rich. Well, at least not for now. I forced myself to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Chide. I couldn't wait to have him in my arms. I had to force myself to sleep. The next day, Jide's call woke me up. His voice was subtle and deep. I smiled when I saw him. For some reason, I felt like I liked him. He showered me with words that melts my heart. He made me feel like I was the most beautiful woman in the whole wide world. He told me things my husband couldn't tell me, or will I say, doesn't tell me. He made me so happy. I was feeling like Jide would come to my house and we would chat all day. We would laugh and talk about so many beautiful things. I was so happy. Days passed and we decided to meet in a hotel because I started getting so used to him. Finally, the day I have been dreaming of came. We went to a hotel nearby. I paid for it. The thought of what my husband did kept pushing me to continue. Something didn't feel right about what I wanted to do, but the hurt and the anger Kayode made me feel still lingered in my heart. Kayode traveled, so I wasn't bothered about him. Me and Jide finally slept together. To my surprise, it wasn't what I expected. In fact, it was nothing at all. Jide finished in just a minute, leaving me unsatisfied and full of regret. But he begged me for another chance, saying it would be better the second time. I agreed, thinking maybe he was nervous before. But again, it was over before it even started. I was disappointed. I was frustrated. I lay in the bed that night feeling worse than before. I thought being with someone younger, someone who seemed so eager, would take my mind off things, but it didn't. It only made me miss Kayode more. Kayode, despite his flaws, had always been a better lover and had always been good in bed. And I realized that it was not the physical connection but the bond we shared, even when we fought. But the worst was yet to come. After that night, Jide wouldn't leave me alone. He started sending me messages, telling me how much he loved me. I blocked his number, but he found other ways to reach me. He would sit outside my gate, waiting for me to come out. Just staring at my house, I felt trapped. My heart raced whenever I heard footsteps outside. He sent me long emotional messages, telling me he had a dream that I was pregnant with his child. He sent poems, reels, even stood at my gates late into the night. I felt disgusted. What have I gotten myself into? I never loved him. It was a mistake, something I regretted deeply. But now it was too late. He was obsessed, and I didn't know how to make him stop. Coyote was coming home very soon, and I knew I had to find a way to get rid of Jide before my husband found out. I loved Coyote despite everything, and I wanted to fix our marriage, but Jide was becoming a bigger problem every day. How could I make him understand that it was over, that it never really started? My phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. It was Jide. Jide, of course. He said he couldn't live without me, that I was the love of his life. My skin crawled at the thought. What had I done to deserve this? What have I gotten myself into? I blocked the number, but I knew he would find other ways to contact me. He always did. I felt cornered, like there was no way out. Jide would be back in a few days, and I had no idea on how to handle the situation. Should I tell him everything and hope he forgave me? Or should I deal with Chide on my own and hope eventually he went away? The fear and the regret weighed heavily on me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My heart raced every time I saw a shadow near the gate or heard a knock at the door. How had I let things get this far? All I wanted was to go back to the way things were before the fight, before Jide, before the... I knew it wasn't that simple. The mess I had created wasn't going to disappear overnight. As Jide's obsession grew, I realized I was in more danger than I thought. Stay glued for part 2.